Battletech head-to-head. In this vlog, we're going to be exploring the Archer versus the Longbow. One-on-one, pitting both machines against each other and asking the question, which mech is going to triumph? Now, these are two of my favorite machines. I regularly play both these machines, either in multiples or parts of mixed lances. So I'm going to certainly draw on some of that Tactica, and of course, draw on your Tactica in the comments. But I am going to look at this from the perspective of building that Tactica checklist, modified by situation, and maybe a little bit of luck. You need luck as a mech warrior to pull out which machine, on average, is going to come out on top. Now, the interesting thing about this, we're breaking a little bit here with the script. If you've followed the other Battletech head-to-head vlogs that I've pushed up to the channel here under that playlist, we've been staying in the same weight class. Lights versus lights, assaults versus assaults, mediums versus mediums. Is it really fair to take a heavy mech and pit it against an assault mech? Just on the virtue of possibly more weapons and more armor, more battle value. It's like one mech going up against 1.5 mechs. There is a difference there. However, the Archer and the Longbow are two interesting machines in that they are dedicated, or they excel at a support role. They're essentially LRM boats. The Longbow is completely dedicated. All of that tonnage is dedicated towards LRMs. The Archer, while it fulfills that role, takes a little bit of battle value, takes a little bit of tonnage, and puts it more into kind of conventional heavy type mechs. So from that perspective, I'm pitting these two mechs against each other because as part of a support lance, long-range support lance, you're going to find mechs with LRMs and autocannons. So if these mechs crossed paths, there is that possibility. But second, I think it is more even than one might think, because by virtue of the Longbow being an assault mech and going all in, it has some weaknesses, where the Archer only being maybe 80% specialization can hold its own or push its own. So let's look at the primary Tactica here. We're at long range. We're going to try and wear each other down with long-range missiles. Now, this is head-to-head. No other mechs. The other lance mates are off doing something. You've been separated from your lance. You're in a position. You've been forced to engage. You're told to hold the position. You're told to attack the position. So we're going to have both of these mechs firing at each other. Not indirect, not with a spotter. Firing at each other primarily. Both have those two LRM 20 packs. We're looking at the standard mechs, not any variants. It's kind of an even trade. We're going to go back and forth. So from this perspective, what is going to push the Tactica is positioning. Just something as simple as, because whatever range I'm at with those long-range missiles, whether I'm piloting the Archer or the Longbow, the other machine, by default, is at that range with those 20 packs. So can I get to a position where I have some cover? Can I get to a position where even if I'm blocking off my legs, a couple of shots to the legs on that chart gets absorbed by the terrain, by the buildings, by the elevation, by the structure. Likewise, if I can be in a position of cover to gain a plus something somewhere on the hit roll. So those slight modifiers as both machines furiously fire real-time hundreds of missiles at each other over a couple of turns, that's going to make a big difference in terms of armor and in terms of the possibility of opening up to criticals. And we're going to explore those criticals because both of these machines are extremely vulnerable to it. Now, the Longbow has two 5-packs that it can also fire. Is that going to make that much of a difference? Over time, I would say not fully, not really. Look, we're going to take every shot that we can get. But where that is going to make a massive difference is once areas are opened up on an opposing mech. If that Longbow can open up a couple of areas to internals, even if it's just damaging heat sinks, or even if it's just blowing off an arm and now the damage transfer, that ability to fish for criticals is going to be huge, is going to be more missiles. But in terms of slogging back and forth against each other, firing missiles, we're going to use it. The Longbow is going to use it, but I wonder, would it really turn the tide that much? Now, firing back and forth, you've got a couple of interesting questions to think, because both of these machines are pretty closely matched, even taking into account the Longbow's extra 5-packs. As a mech warrior, as a mech commander issuing orders, and as a mech tech who's like, look, I've got to fix all this afterwards, battle value, salvage, making things work. Do you stand still and cut down on your modifiers, your movement modifiers? Both machines, they're not slow, but they're not especially fast, so you can only stack so much. It's not like a lighter medium mech where I can go flat out and say, look, I'll just run circles all day. I'll just run around, stack my modifiers so it's hard for you to hit me. And in firing back, I'm only dealing with running or walking, the +1 or +2, or possibly jump if I've got jump capability. These mechs, they can only move so fast. So what this means in terms of hitting is, do you decide to walk or run, cut down on the +1 or the +2, or do you keep moving? That combined with cover, those are some interesting questions. I think it's going to come down to the style of the mech warrior, whether they're moving or not. Do you want to sit there and take a few, or do you want to receive a few? Generally speaking, since we're dealing with 20 packs, even with the armor of both mechs, I think I would keep on moving. I mean, that's kind of Battletech 101. I'm always going to try and stack that +2. The reason why I would choose to keep moving, I would embrace the lucky dice roll. Remember, a little bit of luck. Both of these machines have 20 packs, which is a good spread. Both of these machines have redundancy, meaning you're not just firing one LRM pack, you're firing two. In the case of the Longbow, you've got those 2 5s. I'm going to roll a good amount of dice. I might roll lucky. So I will keep moving to try and stack those modifiers to protect myself, and I will take the modifiers of moving and hopefully rolling above. That's just one perspective. But again, I think the primary thing is cover. Now, we're going back and forth. This is kind of evenly matched. And at this case, do you kind of figure, well, I guess who gets lucky first? If one of the mechs scores a couple of hits to the left torso and starts to punch through armor, or weakens a leg and is going to start to down a mech, or blows off an arm, who's going to do that first if it's up to the dice? This is where we're going to start to close, because at some point, if I'm the archer pilot, it's going to benefit me to close. Both of these machines now have a choice, right? I can only move backwards so fast. And let's say we have a pretty big hex map. I can only move in reverse so fast. So if the archer pushes it, if I was the archer pilot, I would push this. I'd be firing the 20s. I would be pushing that to get into medium laser range. Now I've got the 2 in the battle fists, in the hands. The Longbow also has medium lasers, but the primary difference is the physical attacks of the archer. That is going to be huge. And the armor structure on the Longbow, it's an assault mech, but it's not as big as you'd like, as much as you think. That archer, if it's aggressive, the irony being both of these mechs want to stay back and kind of shoot. The archer shooting, it's going to be kind of a stalemate. Longbow, stalemate. Maybe Longbow has a little bit of advantage. I would push that. I would push close as the archer pilot. Get close, get into physical combat, and see what we could do there. 1 in 6 chance of headshot or savaging with kicks. Ammo. That's the biggest thing. Both of these machines are vulnerable to ammo explosions, or a couple of lucky hits. Disabling an LRM 20 is huge. Is huge. You might play it where I don't want to close and I want to try and soften up the mech, soften up the machine, see what shots I can get, and if I can disable one of those LRM 20s, or I can go to internals, at that point, push it. So, tactically, mech warriors, mech commanders, mech techs, Battletech versus Longbow versus Archer, I'm going to go with the Archer. I love both of these machines, but I'm going to go with the Archer. Despite the difference, Archer's got the range, can hold its own, but the key, I think, is going to be pushing it to medium laser, and then physical attacks.